Hi class, it's Dr. Deskins here. I am going to go into our classroom. I'm going to start our classroom here, or my video here, with the discussion board. There happen to be two of these classes this term where we have 28 students, and in this case, just so everyone knows, normally in this class, the group, so it's, called group, is really only supposed to be 2 students, maybe 3. In our case, we've got 28 students, so I had to put 4 in each group, so we have 7 groups. Therefore, when you go to your discussion board, you're going to see, in this case, we're in week 3, so it's 3-3. And you have your, I've actually created, for example, group 7, reply here, group 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If you just reply, click on here and reply to my post, you'll be able to keep your entire group's area up in the one section, since I've pinned that to the top of the discussion board. Otherwise, if you go up to the top and you start a new thread, it's going to throw it to the very bottom. If you do that, the groups are going to get all mixed up. You're going to be jumping all back and forth. I really recommend that you please just respond to what I have posted up here, and then just go forward with your group discussions. When it gets to the point where you're supposed to share your final group project, or your discussion for that module at the end of the week, then you can create a new thread, because you'll be able to label it with the correct title according to the instructions and the rubric. And then I'll know to go there and I can review that and then grade accordingly when it gets to the final project. What I want to go over here are some questions, because we are working on the SMART goals in week 3. You see all the different milestones that we have, and with these milestones, like in week 2, we worked on the SWOT analysis and the minimum of the 6 annotated bibliographies, which would be your 6 sources, as it says here. And then there's links that the course designers have included all throughout this rubric. I know I went over it before. Some of you, I guess, needed a little bit more in-depth explanation, so that's what I'm doing here today. So being that we moved on to milestone 2, when we get to week 3-3, we are going to be working on the SMART goals, and the SMART objectives and strategies. Those relate to your campaign. SMART goals are always going to be relating to your internal, like your budget, how much you're spending on it. Now, you don't have to tell me how much you're spending. You could just refer to it as the marketing budget, something along those lines. If you try to picture that you're creating a written campaign that you would be presenting to your company leaders, that's probably the best way for me to explain this to you, where you would be creating this campaign, and once you're done with the campaign, then you present it step by step, which is what you're going to be doing when you send it to me. So in the second sentence, where it says you must apply principles in module 2 to develop SMART objectives, and there's a link, and strategies, as well as create the creative big idea for your advertising campaign. That doesn't mean that we're creating any kind of graphic illustrations. If you want to do that, you can, but please only do that on your time. Don't make that part of your group effort, because that's not an assignment. We're not doing graphic design in this class. Everything here is a written plan. It's how are you going to approach this? In marketing, we do a lot of research. So even though you're going to have 6 sources of information, hopefully by the time you're done with your project, you're going to have a lot more than that. And I'm going to go over the actual rubric table in just a moment. But in this section here, some of you have questions on these SMART objectives. Hopefully you're clicking on that link, and when you click on that link, it opens up this web page here that the course designers have included for you to review. As you see, your SMART goals, they're goal setting. These are just, how you're going to approach your company project. I can't tell you how to approach this. This has to be, you thinking about how you're going to do it, how your group is going to do it. And so your SMART goals, as it says here, they are specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-based. As we go down, and I wouldn't necessarily say agreed upon. I like the term better that they're achievable more than agreed upon. But to give a little bit further explanation here, when you're writing out your plan, regardless of what your plan is, if it's is your, the keto diet plan, or, virgin in your select segment of virgin, whether it's records or the travel segment, or, there was another group doing tree houses. That's specific. That's what your goal is. You're starting out, this is the direction we're going, and you just give information and you're specific. So that's the S of your SMART plan. Now, when you go on to M, you have to describe if it is measurable, meaningful, and motivational. And that aspect, for example, if you are working on a, well, let's just say a travel plan for Virgin. When you address that, you need to know your target audience. Who's your demographic of people? Who are you going after for something in particular? Now, granted, this may not be the direction you're taking. I'm just giving an example. But you want to know who your demographic audience is. Another example, if I go back to the treehouse, because I was speaking with a student about that earlier. When you get to something along those lines, okay, well, yeah, you'd like everybody to have a tree house, but is it something that's measurable? Or is this something where maybe you want to target a certain age group, maybe like the 40 to 60 years old? For example, if you were going to say, well, we're going to target, 65 and up or 70 and up because they're retired and they've got money. Well, first of all, unless you know for a fact that they do have money set aside, you're speculating. Otherwise, you need to find sources of information that tell you otherwise and give you hard, solid data that tells you that, yeah, it's measurable, and yeah, you can go after the older generation of people. But however, if for example, you wanted to, build tree houses, and it's like, all right, well, we're specific on what we're going to do, and now we're going to go into the measurable, and if it's achievable. If you're going to build a traditional tree house that's literally up in the tree, if your target audience, say, is 65 and older, have you taken into consideration if your audience or your target audience is capable of going up and down a traditional treehouse ladder? Or are you going to have to make some adjustments to where you either have to install an elevator or maybe stairs? These are things that you have to think about, and this is what you would talk about amongst your group. And so if, for example, maybe you're starting to do research and realize that, all right, well, we have to be a little bit more specific on who our audience is. So, maybe instead of going, 65 to 75 or 80-year-old target audience, we'll go like the 40 to 60-year-old. All right, so maybe that's a little bit more attainable. Maybe it's more achievable. Again, you have to do a little bit of research to see where that, that demographic, might fall into place. Again, you can go ahead and just, make speculation unless you can find some hard evidence. There are websites out there that do give you demographic information where you can put in like zip codes and you can find data relating, and it'll give back and it'll tell you what salaries are in certain cities according to zip codes. And then you can just, there's just so many different tools out there that you can use, and I'm not saying you have to use them, but they are available, and they are things that we use in marketing when we're coming up with campaigns. So again, when you may have something as specific as, you're going to be building tree houses, but as far as it being meaningful to the consumer, and if it's measurable for the company as planned, make sure that you're targeting the right audience. And then when we go into the A of the SMART goals, again, is it achievable and attainable? And I would focus on those goals, more than the other parts of that A there. But is it achievable, doable amongst that group of people? And we move on to the R. Is it realistic and reasonable? And if it is, and maybe you want everybody to have this treehouse, but you have to start somewhere. So maybe you'll start in that industry with a demographic audience of 40 to 60-year-old. Maybe you'll tweak it, 40 to 55 or something along those lines. But again, the direction you take with your product is going to be completely up to you and your group. And then the T of the SMART goals is time-based, time-bound, timely, tangible, and trackable. And so if you're going to, for example, you want to track it being time-based, or if I go back to Virgin and say if you're talking about a travel segment of a company, is it seasonal? Or building a treehouse, and if it's up north, is it is that seasonal? Whereas down in Orlando, Florida, basically you'd be able to build something year round except for anywhere between the months of June and November when we have hurricane season. You'd have to kind of plan accordingly and make sure that you're not in the middle of hurricane season, which is normally towards the end of that time frame. But those are things that you look at, how you're able to approach your SMART goals. And again, all of these things will incorporate into your budget, and that's what you help to explain to your company leaders. When you scroll down a little bit more on this page, you'll see just a little bit more information. There is no chart or anything that has to be filled out for SMART goals. It's not the same as a SWOT analysis. Again, your SMART goals, you're writing out the details. Don't just do bullet points, yes, they're attainable, or they're well-defined or whatever. You need to explain those. And when I mentioned that, I'm going to pop back over here to our rubric. And when we get to milestone 3, which is, milestone 2, excuse me, which is in the 3.3 section of our final project for milestone 2, that's where we're talking about the SMART goals, objectives, and strategies, as well as that creative big idea for your advertising campaign. So you're basically, like you're going to your company leader, or think of me as your company leader, and you have to prove to me that the money that I'm giving you for a budget, or the money you're asking for your budget, you have to prove to me that you've done your research and that you have spent the company's money well, and you're spending it wisely. And this is why you look at these SMART goals. This is why you look at your SWOT analysis. You have to know where your strengths and weaknesses are with the internal workings of your company. You need to know where your opportunities lie, along with your threats from competitors. And speaking of competitors, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you review competitors that would be doing something similar to what your project is. When you look at your competitors, you can get some better ideas as to the direction you may want to go. You'll also get ideas of where you don't want to go. You may see a market that they aren't reaching, and so you can actually go for that market. So try to make it easier on yourself by looking at those things. And then as we move through these, milestone 3 and the 6.2, milestone 4 and milestone 5, basically each of these segments, you're just going to keep on building upon them and adding them to your paper. So example for even like your SWOT analysis, a couple of the groups had shared a PowerPoint slide. While the slide is okay to share, you're not going to insert a PowerPoint slide into your Word document. What you're going to need to do if you do that is you're going to need to file or save as or export that slide as a JPEG. And that way everybody can have an image of the SWOT analysis, and you can insert that image into your document. But I need to see your SWOT analysis as well in some format. If you want to write your SWOT analysis in paragraph form, where you have like, here's the strengths, and you do them all as bullet points. And just so you know, regardless if your SWOT is in paragraph form or in table form on a chart, it has to be bullet points. You don't write a SWOT analysis ever as a paragraph. There's no reason for it to be a paragraph. A SWOT analysis they're supposed to be short bullet points where the entire team can look at it and say, okay, here are the 5 strengths that our company has internally. Here are the 5 weaknesses that we face as a company. Maybe our technology is old. There's different things that are specific to the internal workings of the company. Nothing within the strengths and the weaknesses should be relating to how a customer views you, other than the fact that maybe you have excellent customer service, and that's a strength, or in your weaknesses, maybe you need to improve your customer service. When you're talking about the customer themselves, that has to move down into the opportunity or the threat section of your SWOT analysis. An opportunity is something that, again, you'd have like 5 bullet points and say, these are the customers you want to go after, or whatever. Most of you did a really great job on your SWOT analysis, but you may need, and you may tweak it before the final project, and that's fine. And then on the threats will be, if you're a brand new company and customers don't know you, well, guess what? That's a threat, but it's also an opportunity. So you kind of have some of these things that crisscross, and they can be duplicated, but make sure you're addressing them properly. And as you address those incorporate into this SMART objectives, which, again, going on that link, it takes you to this page that gives you a very simple idea on what these SMART goals are. Again, the SMART goals they're not a table, it's not a form. SMART goals have to be written out. So if you basically, if I put it to you this way, that your SMART goals would be basically a paragraph for each letter. Paragraph is normally 3 to 5 sentences. So if you can explain to me, to your company leaders, that your SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based, then if you can do that with each section as a paragraph, then you have addressed all of your SMART goals. You should be able to write an entire paragraph, at least a minimum of 3 sentences, that gives an explanation of what each of these are. Because you have to, if you don't understand what you're looking at when you're looking at your product, there's no way you're going to be able to create a marketing campaign. And so then under here, we see this one table here, and it's got the 5 milestones broken up here. And when you go to these different segments, you just see when these are due. So we will be working on the group discussions throughout the entire term, but after week 3, we don't go back into group discussions until week 6. So you'll still be working on everything with your modules, but then we pick up those, you'll still be discussing, I should say, I correct myself. You're still going to have your group discussions all throughout, but this is when these actual modules are going to be due. When we move to the 3rd and final page of our rubric, the one thing I want to stress is that you need to always follow your rubric, regardless if you are doing a discussion board post or if you're doing an assignment. Every class and every university at least across the United States, has this rubric. Actually, I think every university and college in the world has them. They're all pretty much standard formats. Some may change a little bit, but they're all basically the same. And as a professor, and instructors as well, we all pull up these rubrics when it's time for grading. And on our end, all these little boxes represent an area. So we would read your paper, and what I would look to see first is, I like to look down this first column and see if you've met every aspect of exemplary. And then I can just go through your rubric that's attached to your name. I click your box, I click your box, I can keep clicking the boxes, but then I add my feedback as to if you've done well or if you need something that needs to be tweaked or whatever. And this is what you should be striving to follow. I did not understand this because I did not understand what a rubric was when I first started taking college online, until my professor kept telling me to look at the rubric. So finally I reluctantly opened it, and I was like, oh my gosh, the rubric actually tells me exactly everything I need to put in my paper. If you put more, that's fine. But as long as you have met this information that it has listed here in this very first column in this little box, as long as you have all that information and it's written to where I can clearly see that, or your instructor can clearly see that information, you're going to get exemplary. If something is missing, then you made proficient, which is still passing. Needs improvement, as you can see here across the top, it jumps from 100% to 85%, which is, you're still in that B grade range. If you're not including information and you're skipping over stuff or whatever, and you're just doing it, writing your own thing and not following the rubric and following this information that's listed up here, because everything is listed in order on how you're going to draft your paper. If you're missing a lot of that information, then you're either going to get, marked with needs improvement, or, it's incomplete. So if I go down this rubric, when you're drafting your paper, the first segment here is, I'm going to be looking forward to, it says meets emerging requirements and addresses all instructor feedback through incorporation or dialogue with instructor. So if you've been posting in the discussion board group post and you've been, talking to your classmates, I've given you feedback, I look at your paper, I see you've incorporated that feedback I've given to your group, you're going to meet that. Now, just because you all are sharing the same information, don't assume that everybody's going to turn in the same exact paper, because everybody writes differently and nobody's paper should be identical. So with that being said, that if, for example, you do incorporate my feedback, and you've incorporated some of the feedback, what that would mean is, for example, if I have given you feedback on your SWOT analysis, for example, and I told you it needed to be written, with the 4 sections, and you needed to have bullet points, very short bullet points listed for each segment of the SWOT analysis, which is how a SWOT analysis is written. If I see your SWOT analysis is written for each of the 4 segments, and you only have like one paragraph, you have a paragraph written for your your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and you haven't listed 5 very short bullet points, well, then you're either going to get in the proficient or maybe needs improvement, just depending on what you have submitted to me. In this instance, for needs improvement, it says student completes and submits all milestones by the due date. What that means is that, all right, well, you've submitted everything, but you're missing a ton of information. Whereas the step above says that you are meeting the emerging requirements and you incorporate some of the instructor's feedback. But if you're incorporating everything, and even though your SWOT may not be perfect, if you included everything, then, well, I'm gonna check this first box off for you. For collaboration, this is where it's very important, and some of the groups are getting a little frustrated, and I know it's stressful, but this is how it is in real world as well, where you're going to be meeting with teams, and not every time will the team member show up. With that said, since these teams were initially 4 groups of 2 people, if you have 3 or 4 people in your group, consider yourself very lucky and fortunate that you have extra minds working on this, and that's a lot easier for you. That's not to say that you have a group of 4 and you're one person and you're supposed to be doing it for everybody. Sometimes that may happen. Very rarely are there 4 people in a group. But in that instance where you only have, 1 or 2 people that are contributing, well, this is where that's going to make a difference in your classmates' grade. If you have group members that have not shown up, perhaps, some of the group members may have dropped off, and, any student that's not participating, I do always follow up with them and their advisor to see what's going on. But sometimes students drop out for one reason or another, or they get far behind for one reason or another. And so even so, if they haven't contributed to your group discussion, then they're going to score low. They end up, getting this not evident section, that's down here at the end where it says team members do not collaborate well enough to produce final answers. So if I see that when I pull your name and I see that you haven't really contributed anything to your group, you're not going to earn any points in this segment. So those students that have given input and tried to draft and put things together, you're going to automatically, you're going to get this exemplary because I see that you've made the attempt. So please don't stress on this. Just keep moving forward. I can't stress that enough. On your research and analysis, I want to point out that whenever you see anything about research, or you see things that say, that you've given rich, in-depth and detailed examples, what that's basically saying, the course designers are saying that you've done your research, you had your beginning 6 sources of information, and you've used in-text citations, you've listed all of your sources on your references list at the bottom, and you've incorporated those all throughout your paper. And please also include your course book, any of your course resources and information. You can include, any of those information, any of those sources. Please just make sure that you are including them as citations and as sources of information on your paper. If you're including your sources and you meet this, this first box again, I can click that box and then I'll give you feedback. For the proficient, it's still not a bad mark. For that one, it says situational analysis and audience research provide a well-defined context for the ad through examples, meaning that maybe you gave, a couple examples, but you didn't give very many, or you didn't really give very many sources of information throughout your paper, but it was still, a good paper, so you'll get that. If you are missing, if it says somewhat design, or defined context, that means that you're missing a lot of information. That means that, your company leaders are going to be asking you questions because they're not going to understand where you're trying to go with your campaign. And then we go to the next section, strategic thinking. Again, if we look at strategic thinking and you're looking at your objectives, strategies, tactics, and all that information, guess what? I go back up here in week 3 for your milestone 2. We're working on our SMART goals, which are the objectives and strategies. So as long as you have addressed your objectives and strategies for your big idea for where you're planning to go with your company or your product, and you address the information, you basically look at all of these different segments and make sure that they're very thorough paragraphs of information, making sure that you're addressing all of the details that are there. So within this information, if your campaign is highly strategic. You know exactly what your goals are. You know who your target audience is. You know what your strategies are. You've completed your SWOT analysis. You have all of your SMART goals clearly defined. You're going to get an exemplary mark. You may be missing some information. In that case, you get proficient. And again, it follows down the chain. The next segment that I look at is the application of advertising principles. And here it says your messaging tactics, IMC recommendations, what are your marketing channel recommendations? I'll demonstrate sound application of advertising principles and creative thinking. And going back up here, that's going to relate to some of this other information on the milestones that are coming up through milestone 3, 4, and 5 through the end of the term. So make sure that you've got all of that information. And creative thinking just means the same thing. That doesn't mean that you're going to be designing an ad. You are actually writing out an actual plan on how you would address going further into advertising, because all marketers have to create a plan. It's just like with a business. Before you go into business, you need to conduct a business plan of operation so that you know where you plan to take your business. It may change over time, and that's fine, but you still need to have your outline of where you're planning on going with it. So this isn't to say that, this whole thing has to be 100% perfect. As long as you're matching all of this information and including this information, it's no different than any other assignment. As a matter of fact, working in these groups, you're getting a lot of help, hopefully, with among your group. And if you have more than 2 in your group that are participating, consider yourself very lucky, as I mentioned earlier, because that means that you have more brains in there that are helping, get some of this information together. When we get to this final portion of polish, this is normally the form and style, that we normally grade on for the very end of your format, your writing, things like that, your articulation of response. Where it says no written mechanical errors, overall design and layout are professional and appealing. Mechanical errors, mechanical writing always relates to the writing style. APA format dictates that we double space our entire document. It needs to be Times New Roman 12 point. You indent your paragraphs. Your in-text citations are written in a particular manner. Your sources of information are written in another manner. They're all your sources of information basically is where your reader would go once they read your paper, and they're like, all right, well, you have an in-text citation here. I know who the author is, so I'm going to look down here on your references list, and I'm going to see where I would go to read information because I'm more interested and I want to find out all I can about this topic. And so please follow APA format. Don't follow MLA because this is where you would lose points. If you had written mechanical errors, that most likely would be where I would mark you off. If you were writing an MLA format or even Chicago style or any of the other writing styles that are out there, this is where you would not earn exemplary points because you're not following APA writing style, which is a requirement for this course. And then so on down the line. So hopefully that helps to further explain the rubric in a little bit more detail. Again, pay attention to this entire rubric. Just follow along. There's plenty of examples here that you can click on to see what these sources of information are showing. We've got a creative brief here. I'm going to see if I can open this momentarily. I opened this in another video that I did, and this just gives you an idea on how this is formatted. This is not how you would format your paper, but it is an example because this paper is not written in APA format, because APA, like I said, is written in Times New Roman double space, but the concept is the same. So for example, you see here on page 14, you see here's part of your SWOT analysis, and not every section of your SWOT analysis is going to have the same number of things. Some may have more than others. If you have very few weaknesses, that's fantastic and great. If you have a lot of opportunities available to your company, that's fantastic as well, because that means that you have a lot of different avenues to address. Again, with your threats, you've got that down there too. On this particular example, there is a chart and a bar chart that's included. So if you want to include that, that's fine. You can, write it as it says here, your key priority issues. You could use this paper as an example on how you would address this project. And again, make sure you're following it in APA format. These are just a lot of really detailed. This paper here is very, very long. Your paper is not going to be this long. You don't need to do all of this in-depth information. What I'm looking for at the end of the day is making sure that you are meeting this rubric for your final project, that you're including all of this information that the course designers have put in here for you to include. So if you submit a paper and you don't have your SWOT analysis, or you don't have a minimum of 6 sources, which were required from your very first discussion board post, if you're missing your SMART objectives, any of these main elements, you're not going to earn the maximum points. So just make sure that if you need to, the best thing to do is to print out the rubric so you can follow it, follow along with that, and make sure that you are addressing every single, and then just check it off. Okay, well, I've done this, I've done this. And when, and then going back to our discussion board post, it definitely is easier if you respond to my post. I mentioned earlier, keep everything within that group section underneath where I posted the very first post for your group. If you just keep on replying and then go ahead and post your comment in there, your classmates for your group can easily open that post and they can read what you said. It doesn't matter what your title shows. The only thing that'll matter on my end is at the end of the week, once you guys have compiled the information. For example, looking at your milestone 2, if we're looking at the 3-3 final project for milestone 2 and your SMART goals and how you're planning on addressing all of those, then one person in your group can go ahead and start a new thread, title it as it's supposed to be titled for milestone 2, and then you're going to post that information on a new thread. And then that way, when I go to look at it towards the end of the week, I could say, okay, so here is group 3, and group 3 included that information. I see it there. Please don't have everybody in your group posting, because that can get kind of all over the place. And then I don't know whose is actually the real final, because everybody may be posting something different. So please don't make this harder than it should be. This is really no different than a normal assignment. Yes, this is an assignment that one person can work on without a group environment. The way the course designers did this, they wanted to have some type of group interaction, because normally in an online environment we don't, and you kind of miss that personal interaction. And this actually throws you into that same mix, as I said earlier, about working with people across different time zones, different walks of life, people with different schedules. And so it's a matter of trying to come together with your team and trying to get the best of the, your information out there and sharing the information. Again, you're not sharing your entire papers. I don't want to open up everybody's project at the very end and see that, each of the 4 people for each group has the same exact paper. That's not how it is. That's going to be plagiarism. So please don't do that. Make sure that, you write your paper in your style, following the APA writing format, and addressing all of these information. The only thing that you guys are going to have the same are going to be those first 6 sources of information that you picked. And then, like I said, expand upon that. You're all going to have share the same SWOT analysis, and you would be sharing the same SMART goals. So anything that you see that you're working on in a group environment, that's going to be the same. All of the rest of the information that you're including when it's coming to the written format of your paper, you're going to be writing that on your own, and maybe going out and getting some additional sources of information. So I hope this helps explain a little bit further. I wanted to go into a little bit more detail on this particular rubric, because it is a rubric that spans across the entire term. Please, if you have any questions, post in the general questions section of the classroom. Email is only supposed to be meant for personal concerns or any types of emergencies that you may have, which would be between me and you as a student and me as your professor. When it comes to any course-related information, the university asks that you please post in the general questions area of the classroom, and that way other people can go there and they can see, well, somebody else had the same question and here the professor answered it. One other note, just so you know, when you guys do post in your group discussions, I get emailed all of the correspondence anyway. So I do, I can follow along there as well as going into the discussion board. I will also add that when it comes to, for example, working on your 3-3, on your SMART goals, you may have a lot of information that you need to hash out. If that's the case, and it's something that you can handle via phone call, or if you want to do a video conference, go ahead and do that. I only say that with the, the mindset of, when it comes to something where there's like long discussions that need to take place and you're worried, if you guys want to go ahead and schedule a time where you can hash certain things out, fine, go ahead and do that, but please come back to the discussion board and post some information about what your discussion was on. You should be, you guys need to still be talking in the discussion board, but I understand that there are some topics that I don't have a problem with you doing communication through phone or through video, but I need to make sure that you do come back to the discussion board, so that way later on, if somebody comes into the classroom and they review your information, they want to see that you did truly participate. They'll see that, okay, well, group so-and-so had a telephone or a video conference and they came down to this conclusion, and this is what they've decided to do. And then you can post, just like an overview of what you have talked about. And that's perfectly fine. What I don't want to happen is I don't want you to having these conversations completely off the grid and then wondering why you didn't get any points for participation, because if that's the case and you didn't post in the group discussion, I have no way of knowing that you did participate. So this is why I want to make sure that if you are having conversations through other means, whether it's through email, through phone, through video, however you're having group discussions, that's fine, but please make sure that each of you comes back to your discussion board area in your group and post some type of informative update or information, to just so that I'm aware that you guys have discussed certain topics, and and then we'll just move forward, and that's perfectly fine. So I'm okay with that. Again, I really thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions, please post in the general questions section. You can also give me a call if you need to. I'll try to be available. For the most part, if you pop me an email in that, general questions area, I will get back, because I'm in the classroom quite often, and I try to remain as attainable and as possible. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much, and I wish you guys well. You guys are doing a great job. I'm really enjoying reading all of your projects. Thank you.